Hey watch friends, today I thought it'd be fun to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about clasps. Specifically, while we wait for this latest model offering from Zelos, this is their upcoming Aurora, which if you haven't already seen it, I do have an unboxing, I'll have that linked as well. But that being said, I will have the full review coming. But in the meantime though, one of the things that's coming with this new release is an all new clasp. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of take a look at some of the evolution of the Zelos clasps. First, I wanted to just quickly show, this is the Swordfish 40. And you can see here, this is their more traditional style. There are, of course, many variations that were featured of this one, but you can see just a basic mix of your brush and sandblasting there. This one had a fold-over style with a double pusher, and it's just your standard, milled clasp there, and then traditional micro-adjust holes. But the ones that I really wanted to focus on today are the one that was initially debuted on the Mako. So this is the Mako Titanium. However, the Mako Stainless was actually the first one to debut a Zelos toolless adjust clasp, specifically the Mako Terra. It was actually a collaboration piece, and that featured this clasp. It was a different version of this as far as style, the finishing on it, but you can see though the actual function was going to be the same as the one we're looking at today. It's a basic double pusher kind of construction, no fold over keeper there, milled bridge there, and then this is where it introduced. You slide this little lever and it shifts in and out, but we'll look at that momentarily. This all new one, as we saw in the unboxing, this one changes up. You can see it gets away from the more rectangular type construction. It rounds kind of the edges there, gives a different flow. This is more actually consistent in the terms of finishing as the original version of this toolless that came out with the kind of dual tone there, though I will say this is not nearly as sharp as the early one was, and this one, similarly on the later iterations, is not sharp either for the logo. But it keeps the basic configuration. You've still got a double pusher construction for this as well, and then of course still has your milled bridge and everything for that. One of the things though that's unique with this, and we looked at in the unboxing, is this actually features an all new adjustment style. And that's one of the things I really wanted to focus on. There are some differences as we go through, and first let's just talk about the visual dynamics. One of the things that people talked about is they actually wanted to see a smaller version of this clasp on the left here introduced. Well, in fact, actually, this is a little bit different than that. So you can see just upon visual examination, this one is actually coming in at around 20.1 millimeters. This actually kicks out and it's a little bit wider at 21.3. Similarly, in terms of the thickness, not accounting for the bridge, just looking at the side clasp, you can see this is coming in at 6.2 millimeters. This one, conversely, is coming in at 6.9 millimeters. So you might be scratching your head of, I thought we were going for a thinner direction for this. I will say, though, visually, I think that this, with having the rounded edges and everything to it, does have kind of that clean visual flow to it. So while I will say I was a bit surprised to see that it actually, on specs at least, is a bit thicker, on wrist thus far, I found the overall footprint and presence to be, it's fairly seamless. It has a nice flow to it. But the biggest thing, far and away, that I want to focus on is the actual function. Let's check this out. So there are some stylistic differences. First, this one is going to be really truly a two-hand mechanism. By that, I mean you've got to kind of grab this side and you've got to push this lever over and you actually have to hold it while you're going. So let's check that out. And you can see, I'm not sure if you can tell via camera or not, but you can see how that kind of pulls out there. With this, maybe you can hear that. It's a little bit gritty on every one of them. It's just the nature of the mechanism. It can be a little bit tough sometimes. Some are harder than others. But then you can see down in there, if we can get this to focus, you have a gearing kind of cut that's on this style. So this one is a very different styling than we'll see on the other. What this means for you is you actually, in bringing that out, you have to pull this lever. However, pushing in, you can see you can do without moving that lever. So this actually has a ratcheting mechanism. A positive of that is you can actually adjust this on wrist. That's a nice touch on this. However, I will say, clicking into the individual, going in is nice. Going out, it's a little bit hinky trying to get single adjustments there. It's a little bit hard to tell where it's at. But the biggest thing is it's a little bit gritty and just isn't the most satisfying of feel. Functionally, great, but it definitely leaves something to be desired. So now let's check out how is this one different. All right, so first, before we get into the functions, you can see the bridge is actually flipped around. So you have the single on the clasp side on the old style, you actually have the double, and then the single goes into here. What that means as well is you can see on the old style on the double, it had the little step down there. Whereas now you can see on the new style, you've got that hump here, and it is a little more pronounced. And we'll talk about that some in the Aurora review as well. It does give a little bit of a hot spot there, as do some of the sharper edges, but really not bad. And basically, unless you're wearing it really snug, you won't notice it. But here's where it really shines, and this is why I will say right off the bat, this is absolutely my favorite clasp I've ever had, and here's why. So first, for this, it is now truly a one-hand construction. So with this, you can actually push this, and you can slide forward and backwards on that. It's a little bit awkward on camera, but you can truly actually manipulate that easily with one hand. In person, it's easier when you're not trying to reach around a camera for that. But additionally, you can still, of course, do the two as well if you prefer. But that being said, you can see now it's a push-style button. So this actually depresses down in there, and that's what frees this to actually be able to manipulate. So instead of the lever style where you had to actually pull that over, this style, it is, listen to that, almost no sound whatsoever because this is butter smooth. But additionally, one of the things, and you can see down in here, it actually operates completely separately. So now you can see that push style, what that does is that actually has kind of a tooth on it, and there are now these indentations that go along the side of the clasp itself. So instead of having a gear that you're having to kind of work against, this now has those teeth that you can pop into in individual slots. So I found that this feels to me a little more secure. It is much smoother. I mean, the operation on this is just absolutely butter smooth, really fantastic there, so I love that. I will say though, it does come with a trade-off. If you were one who liked being able to adjust on the wrist, you no longer, as you can see, push that in when it's open. So you, to both open and close, do have to push that in. So you will have to take this off wrist to the adjustments. But what's nice is you can now actually see the visual notches in there. And let's see if we can do this on camera. So you can push that in and you can go individual clicks for that. So you can just snap it in. I found this is a little bit easier to adjust for making kind of fine-tune adjustments there. So that's nice as well. But overall, you know, I've got to say, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I have to say, to me, I have seen every variation has been just a little bit more refined, a little bit more pleasing, and I think that this is no exception. I like the now round buttons instead of the rectangular buttons. I like here, again, kind of nice curvature and flow. So even though this does go actually a little bit larger on size, and even though you do have the trade-off for that style, ultimately, I think it's well worth it for the smoothness of the function that you get. I like the way that they have the integration here with this kind of faux link that comes in and out there. I think it keeps an extremely clean appearance, which here is the old style. You can see this too it has actually like a bridge section in there, so you have a real link here, and then it just has this piece is actually what moves. Personally, I think this is just a little bit of more of a harmonious kind of construction, but the biggest thing is the functional improvements. I would absolutely rather give up the ratcheting function to be able to get that kind of smooth manipulation, and it is so easy and so smooth to go. So yes, it's a sample of one. That being said, I've handled a lot of these, and none of them have been anywhere near as smooth. I probably had 20 or 30 of them at this point come across the bench here. So I think people are going to be really pleased with this overall. Don't be dissuaded by the overall size. I think the flow and everything does work well, and here's kind of that shot. And we'll, of course, look at this more in the full review. But in the meantime, I did want to at least give you a little bit more of a deep dive into one of the highlights of this model, and that's this new clasp. So let me know what you think down in the description. Additionally, I didn't mention it at the outset, but by request, I did actually try changing the background up here, going with a black background rather, instead of the ordinary gray. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think? What's your favorite clasp? And additionally, what do you think of this background? Hey, thanks for watching. As always, if you liked it, hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, smash that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.